What is going on, everyone? We are doing Xenagos the Reveler, a full review on him today. Pretty fun planeswalker. I haven't seen him being played much, but I think it's just because there just isn't that much info about him going around, so people haven't really explored his potential. So we'll get into all of that. First, I want to say thank you to Webcore for always sending me the new Planeswalker so that I can give them a nice full review. Whether or not I am very favorable on them, they are happy to have the honest discourse about their Planeswalkers. And hopefully I'm helping to improve them by giving them the opportunity to see this type of honest feedback and maybe make it a little bit better of a game. Anyhow, let me first get into his stats here. So he's got 114 hit points, not bad. Mana bonuses. He's got +5 on red and +5 on green, which is excellent. I really like that, especially for green. We have a lot of ways to convert gems to green, so getting a +5 on them is one of the best for a green planeswalker. Really like that. -2 on black and -2 on white. Kind of hinders him a bit, but he's got the +2 on blue, so very similar to like a Casmina or a Luca. Bound to Ruin actually is probably a closer comparison. I believe also Samet has that same mana bonus, but I don't think she gets +2 on any other color. So I personally enjoy this type of mana spread just because you can do so much with green right now. So I feel like he is well suited for playing high cost cards because of it. His deck limits are kind of interesting. 6 creatures, 9 spells, and 4 supports. So remember what I've said before. The design team always gives you clues as to how they want you to play with this planeswalker, and that's just by how they design the limitations. So 9 spells and 4 supports. They want you to go aggro. They want you to sling spells, and they don't really want you to play that much of a slow game, which is what supports usually entail. So they limit the amount of supports, which is a bummer because I don't necessarily want to play a planeswalker exactly how the designers want me to. I want to be able to do anything I can to be able to maximize the abilities given to me. So I would have personally preferred way more than 4 supports, but it is what it is. At least we get 9 spells, which is a very good amount for a dual color planeswalker. First ability, Rollick Knight, 6 loyalty. Exile the top 2 cards of your library, then draw 2 cards. Those cards gain 4 mana. Exiling the top 2 cards of your library doesn't really mean much for us right now, but it does synergize a bit with the other abilities that he has. The more important part of this is the drawing 2 cards and those cards gaining 4 mana. I think that's really good. Just getting 2 extra cards in your hand and giving them a decent amount of mana already is a pretty good ability. Depending on the type of deck you're building, you could either, run some low cost spells and sling them that way, or you could do things where you can draw into the cards you want and then use the mana to do other things with it. But either way, drawing 2 cards and gaining 4 mana with no downside really is a pretty good ability, I have to say. Expanding the Horizon, ability 2, 11 loyalty, create an Explorer Satyr, reinforce it 5 times. And what are the Explorer Satyrs? They are creatures, 2/2 with haste. When this creature dies or loses a reinforcement, gain 2 mana and 2 loyalty. When this creature attacks, if this creature has 3 or more reinforcements, this creature gains reach and imminent death. I wasn't expecting to really like these Satyr tokens that much, but I've actually found them to be pretty useful. Mostly because you get a decent stack of them when you do this ability. I mean, this is at level 4, so maybe it's not reinforced that much when you get them. on level 1. But when they hit the board as a 10/10, and they're going to be hitting on that turn, so you're going to be hitting your opponent for 10 damage, and then it also serves as a nice blocker because it gains reach. So it's a pretty solid little creature if you think about it. For no mana cost, you're getting a 10/10 creature on the board with haste and reach. And if you wanted to, you can build out this creature and give it, first strike with Helm of the Gods or something like that, or anything like that. Give it death touch so that it becomes a death wall. You can raise its base power and toughness with something like Streetwise Negotiator or Duskana. And then you could even use this as fodder for other things that trigger from losing reinforcements. Things like Rakdos the Muscle, for example. There's actually quite a bit of utility if you really start to explore the possibilities there. So I actually really like this little creature token, way more than I expected to. I have no idea how to pronounce this. Bakea. 23 loyalty. Pretty steep, though. You exile the top 7 cards of your library, then return the first 3 different creatures from your exile to the battlefield under your control with their reinforcements. Then reinforce your satyr creatures 6 times. So this synergizes not only with the first ability, but also the second. If you were using the first ability a lot, then you're more likely to put the creatures from your exile under your control when you play this, but you can also do things where you fetch creatures to your hand, things like Gather the Pack, play Gather the Pack, exile your library with something like Titania's Command, and then even exile the creatures that you fetched with Gather the Pack, and then put them into play with this third ability. So it's a pretty cool way to cheat things out into play, and I don't know if any other green or red Planeswalker has an ability like that to be able to just do that. Mono green, we've got Wrenn and Realm Breaker, or even Wrenn and 7 that can do that from your graveyard, but this is the only one I've ever seen that will bring things back from your exile, and that's pretty neat. So if you have ways to mass exile your graveyard, or just draw a lot and exile it from your hand, and then wait to play it for free with your loyalty ability, it's a pretty good way of going about it. Also, the reinforcing your satyr creature 6 times, that synergizes well with the creature token from the second ability, if you want to go that route. I don't think satyrs are very good creatures just in general in this game. I think there might be a couple of fairly viable ones in Legacy, but Standard, I'm kind of racking my brain to think of which ones are really playable satyrs. So you're probably not going to build a deck with satyrs in mind. I just look at it as a little bonus if you happen to have your second ability creatures on the board. But I personally didn't find it worth building my deck to include satyrs. But you might feel a little differently. Personally, I was playing much stronger creatures than anything satyrs have to offer in my testings. So what are the pros and cons of this guy? I think he's well suited for aggro strategies. The mana gains plus the abilities, I think, do well for getting things out quickly and doing a lot of damage with them right away. 9 spell slots is pretty good. I personally don't have a reason to run that many spells in a green-red deck right now, but you never know what we're going to get in the future. Plus, you can also take this guy into Legacy and run a bunch of spell combos that way, and you can go that route, and that's good. You get really high mana gains in his color combo, and the creature tokens from his second ability can be actually very useful. What are his cons, though? Well, of course, the 4 support slots. That's just too low, in my opinion. At the very least, 5 needs to be a minimum amount of support slots for any walker. That would be my wish. And then, the potential of the abilities are limited by a creature type that is very niche and relatively weak. I'm talking about satyrs there. Fortunately, his abilities don't necessarily rely on you having satyrs to be that effective. They just kind of enhance satyrs if you happen to be playing them. But I personally don't have a great reason to want to even run satyr tribal. If somebody can change my mind on that, I'm all ears, but I just don't see it right now. So, all that said, let me show you what I mean by going aggro with this guy. For this deck, I wanted to make it as accessible as possible because I just wanted to see, okay, how much can I do with just his kit and how much am I relying just on cards. So we have 3 Origins cards in here, all at low rarity. We got Animus Awakening, Nissa's Pilgrimage, and Demolish. So those are all going to be in most people's collections at this point. Just for mana gain, and Demolish is a nice, easy to cast removal for support. We have Commercial District at the beginning of your turn, convert 4 gems to red or green, so it is a pretty solid land there. Some of the things that where it starts to get a little bit more interesting is Jolene is, to me, the best creature in standard in the uncommon rarity because it's a 6/5 for 10 mana, which is really, you don't see that in uncommon rarity very often at all. She's legendary, so that helps for things. She's an outlaw, which also helps for other things. But really what I like about this card the best is when a creature you control attacks, if that creature has power 4 or more, you create 2 gold tokens. So if you build up your side of the board enough, you're going to be creating 6 gold tokens a turn every time your opponent attack, or every time you attack. And also, she has built-in removal as well. When a simple token you control is destroyed, deal 2 damage to the first opposing creature. Now, this would be a chase rare and possibly a mythic. The fact that it's an uncommon is amazing. So I love using her whenever the situation calls for uncommons and stuff. So you see her in a lot of my low rarity builds for that reason. Then Aurelia, the Law Above, just a very strong rare, one of my favorites in standard. She kind of picks up where Rem Powerless kind of left us. I mean, not exactly, but she is a really nice creature that ends up being in a lot of decks, especially in those events where Peasant cards are required. So, there's a lot that she brings to the table. She brings card draw, she brings removal in the form of creature damage, and she brings life gain. Not only that, she has haste and vigilance, so she can attack pretty quickly, and she blocks, and she's also dual colored and a legendary, so great stuff happening there. We got Molten Collapse, which is a nice card as well. Just solid all around removal. It can remove basically any type of card, and it's untargeted, and it tends to target the most troublesome card that you're dealing with at the time. Deadly Complication, just some more removal. Red doesn't typically have just straight targeted removal, so that's what I like about this one. You can also put in something like Drag to the Roots. Cards like that is also removal. But this one's cheaper, so I like it for that reason. And then the last little bit of spice here will be Streetwise Negotiator. This one is great to pair with the Satyr tokens to make for quick wins, because there is a flaw in the text of this card where it should be this creature's base power becomes X until end of turn, and X is equal to that creature's toughness. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, that creature's power becomes Y until the beginning of your next turn, and Y is this creature's toughness. That part of the card doesn't really matter that much. So changing the base power of a creature with tons of reinforcements usually buffs it to a lethal level. And one casting of Streetwise Negotiator on a stack of Satyr tokens, which automatically come with haste, means you're going to be dealing a lot of damage at once. So really good finisher card for when you're just trying to win quickly. So pretty solid deck. You can see that it takes care of decks that are full of cards with much higher rarity in general. So try it out, see if you like it. And yeah, even if you don't pick up Xenagos, this is a solid deck to try with your planeswalkers that can run it. This next deck here is built around goblins. This is a new exclusive card, Krenko Mob Boss. At the beginning of your turn, reinforce all goblin creatures you control, then create X goblin tokens. X is the number of goblin creatures you control, including their reinforcements. So this card alone can get out of control really quickly. You can create tons of goblins just from having this card survive long enough. But we're going to pair it with Ovika, who creates tons of goblins every time you cast a spell or support. Create X goblin tokens. X is half that card's mana value rounded down, and they get haste. So you start by playing Ovika, and then wait to get Krenko Mob Boss down. The rest of the cards in here are kind of meant to help you get to that point. You do Temp with Discovery and pair it with Kylox's Volt Strider, so that the Volt Strider will charge up your Template Discovery so you can cast it on your next turn. Galta, of course, will also be converting gems to getting us all the mana in the hand that we need, hopefully. Connecting the dots is going to help by just putting things into play without even having to worry about casting them. Chimil, the Inner Sun, will help by bringing the cards we want into our hand and also getting them into our hand with half their mana. So that's all great. Our finishers are going to be Streetwise Negotiator, just like what we did with the Satyr tokens. You can throw this on the Goblin stack and hit for lethal damage. And then even if you don't get to that point, you don't have the Streetwise Negotiator, you give your big Goblin stack double strike and accomplish basically the same thing. So this deck can sometimes have trouble getting all the pieces together, so it might need a little bit more optimization. I don't think it would be a bad idea, instead of using Chimil, using Threats Undetected to get the creatures you want into play. So that might be something that you choose to do here. Chaos Warp being the only real removal in this deck means you set yourself up to be a little bit vulnerable against certain deck types that you might run against. But as long as you're able to keep Krenko and Ovika on the board and just keep playing other things, you're going to have a pretty good time with it, and you're going to win fairly quickly with it. So if you're able to try this deck, give it a shot. Pick up Krenko Mob Boss. If not for cash, it's definitely a chase-worthy card if you like playing tokens and all that. So keep an eye out for that card. If it comes your way, definitely give it a shot. Pair it with Ovika while Ovika is still in Standard, and you'll get a lot out of it there. And then also Streetwise Negotiator is the only card right now in Standard that changes the base power and toughness for green creatures, or in green, I should say. Once that's gone, we'll have to rely on cards like Relic's Roar, but Xenagos won't be able to run that card. So hopefully we get more cards that raise the base power and toughness, and we can take advantage of Krenko that way. Alright, on to the next one. This deck here is my real pride and joy when it comes to Xenagos. it wins so fast. It's got a lot of mythics and masterpieces in it, I gotta say. But this is the power you get when you chase these cards. So first up, we got Doubling Season, which is an exclusive pay only mythic support card enchantment with 3 shields. When a non-token creature you control is reinforced, reinforce it twice instead. When a creature you control is buffed, that creature gets +1/+1 for each of its reinforcements. So the thing about this card is that it triggers on every reinforcement. Like, it doesn't just lump all the reinforcements together in a single instance. It will reinforce separately for each time you're reinforced. So, for example, we got Surak the Hunt Caller. Reinforce each other creature you control 3 times. With Doubling Season, that is 6 times. So, even with these creatures that are not crazy powerful on their own, reinforcing them that many times builds up really quickly. We also got Vanifar Evolved Enigma, which is another card that will reinforce your creatures. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control another creature with base power of 5 or greater, and that will be Surak, reinforce this creature 2 times, then reinforce each creature you control until end of turn. So with Doubling Season out, you're going to be reinforcing this creature 4 times at the beginning of combat. So with all these cards, 6 also will reinforce it, the creatures you have out as well. When you trigger Leyline, return the first non-land creature from your graveyard to play under your control, then reinforce it X times. X is the amount of seed gems on the board. So that will get out of control as well, because you're going to be reinforcing it X times 2 times. So as you can see, these battles win so quickly. We got Omen Path Journey in here to fetch 6 and Sunken Citadel to the board. So I like playing Omen Path Journey first and then just building up everything else while we take advantage of those interactions there. You know, Temp with Discovery, Chaos Warp. Gratuitous Violence here is a little bit just more to help speed up wins even faster. When a creature you control deals combat damage, double that damage. So we're going to be reinforcing our creatures so much that, you know, you can't help but do a ton of damage when you hit them. And then Gratuitous Violence is just there to double all that. And then Fangs of Colonia, the last thing that we have in here that also reinforces. Target creature you control gains Leyline, then reinforce each creature you control, then reinforce each creature you control X times. X is the number of those creatures' reinforcements. So we are going to be doing a ridiculous amount of reinforcements, especially if you time this Fangs of Colonia at the right time, and it's just going to explode the amount of reinforcements that you get whenever you cast this thing. So all those reinforcements add up to very speedy wins, as you can see. So this definitely, if you're watching this video and you don't have a lot of these cards, well, you can see what the power of them will be. So definitely go chase a lot of these and have fun. All right, let's get to grades. Folks, let's get right into it. First, we got max hit points. Not terrible. Not on the high end nowadays, but pretty respectable. Not going to have too many issues with him not having enough HP. So he gets a B+ there. We get mana spread. So I personally really like this type of mana spread for dual color walkers. Getting high end on the 2 colors that your planeswalker corresponds to. So you can just put in a couple of lands and convert to the gems that you want. So it makes it for a pretty good mana spread for a dual color walker, and especially getting 8 mana on a green match is really good for any green walker, because you can fill the board with green gems that easily. So it gives them a really good advantage in mana gains there. So I'm giving them an A. We're a different walker that doesn't have that much to gain in. We're a different walker that did not have green. Maybe this mana spread might not be as good, but since green is part of his kit, you gotta kind of factor that in to the ability to gain that much from a green match. Ability 1, I actually really like this ability just because it just gives you a way to get to the cards that you might need. Drawing 2 and gaining 4 mana alone is a pretty good ability, so I actually really like it. Giving it an A-. Ability 2, also a surprisingly good ability. Those tokens, also a surprisingly good ability. Those tokens are surprisingly useful. You can do a lot with them. You can just straight on attack with them and get a lot out of it. The little passive ability that they have where you gain loyalty and mana also comes in handy too. So they actually do a decent amount for you. They're not usually going to win games on their own for you, but you can pair them with other things that are definitely going to help you win faster. So I like them. This ability gets an A from me. Now, ability 3, also a pretty good ability. It takes a little while to get there. It's a little bit costly for an ability, but if we are doing green gem conversion, you're probably going to get there fairly quickly and reliably. And if you build for it, it's a good way to cheat out your high cost creatures if you need to go that way. It just kind of speeds up a game that you either fell behind in or you want to win even faster. So this one also gets an A from me. Versatility. So he's mainly meant to play really aggressively, I would say. His abilities kind of push you in that direction. It's interesting that he deals with exile rather than graveyard stuff, but I have no issue with that. You can play something like Connect the Dots to take advantage of that. But I don't think his abilities lock you into a certain card type. You're encouraged to play with satyrs, but I don't think that's really the right move for any walker to play with satyrs, but he's still decent for that. I do think that his lack of support slots lock him into a certain type of deck makeup, but the rest of his abilities don't necessarily mean that you have to play a certain card or card type to get the most out of him. So I'm going to give him a B in versatility. Card utility, I also kind of feel the same way about it, where his abilities, the only thing they really do is enhance satyrs, and satyrs aren't really something that a lot of people are really going to want to play with just because they're kind of weak. If this was like vampires or something, you get a whole lot more of a card pool to deal with and can build some more interesting, unique builds around. But I think there's only like 2 or 3 satyrs in standard right now anyway. So if you don't like those creatures, then you're not going to play them. So his abilities beyond that, his abilities that specifically focus on satyrs don't really do that much for you. It just tends to enhance the satyr tokens, the second ability that the satyr tokens create. So beyond that, I don't think he brings a lot more to the table. However, his mana spread and the amount of spells that he can use afford him an advantage in that regard. So I'm going to give him a B in card utility. And fun. So I personally love playing this green aggro right now. So putting in the right red cards makes that even faster and gives you a little bit more versatility in terms of what you can do there. Mono green kind of lacks in certain things that red can fill in. It's easy to give haste to your creatures. It's easy to, put things in like gratuitous violence to double that damage, twin flame tyrant and all that. So if you want to play super fast aggro, I think he's a really good planeswalker for that. So I had a lot of fun with him, so I'm giving him an A in fun. So what does that leave the final grade for me? He gets an A minus. Pretty solid planeswalker. I think he's being a little bit overlooked because of all the fun things that people are looking at now. We have 2 tricolor walkers coming to the game, but I think that this guy is taking the place of Domri for me as my favorite Gruul walker to use. Gruul meaning red and green. I just think that he's a really fun planeswalker for training grounds and quick battle. I keep calling it training grounds. I'll probably keep calling that for a while. But he's a little bit more like Luca Bound to Ruin, except a much better version of him. So I'm definitely not going to use Luca Bound to Ruin and use Xenagos the Reveler instead. So let me know if you picked him up. Do you feel the same way about him? Does this review get him more interesting to you? Let me know. Again, thank you, Webcore, for letting me try this guy. I have a lot of fun with him. He's one that I love to play certain deck archetypes with, and I'm going to continue to do so. And as we get more and more cards in the game that focus on aggro, I think this is a great planeswalker to play that in. All right, that's it for this one. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you have not, and I hope to see you in the next one.